5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we are here with the very first complete TMCJ podcast. Did I say podcast? I already fucked up. Podcast.
Good job.
That is a good christening to the beginning of this thing.
Start as you mean to go on, as they say.
I think neither of us had any delusions that this was going to be something other than a shit show. But
Well, no, it's a bit of fun, isn't it?
so if you're listening to this on any day that isn't next Saturday, the 30th, 29th? I don't know what day it is.
Yeah,
but
sure, 30th.
if you're listening to this during the week, you're probably listening to one of the individual segments. So the plan is, in this podcast final form, at least on YouTube, is to publish the podcast in 4 parts. So segment 1 will be published on Monday, segment 2 on Wednesday, segment 3 on Friday, and then the whole podcast in its entirety will be published on Saturday as one video. The idea being, if people want to just listen to something bite-sized, it's available in that kind of format. But if they want to listen to the entire thing, or they heard one bit and thought they wanted to hear the whole thing, they can, listen to it on Saturday.
Yep, and then they can go to therapy on Sunday.
Yeah, that's what that's what Sunday's for. Just quietly crying.
And finding God. Wait, is that a Sunday thing or is that a Saturday thing?
It depends. So it's a Sunday thing if you're a Christian. I think it's a Saturday thing if you're Jewish.
Right, okay.
So we've already gotten into religion, and I haven't even brought up the first topic.
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
It's fine. So
You're the media master.
I have, for topics, the first segment, what we're in now, I have 3 topics that kind of have one overarching theme, and it's really one topic. It's media having aged or not aged well. So, like, with games, I mean, this is easy. It's games that have poor graphics. Are they still fun to play? Are they still interesting after years of playing through them? Movies, did cheesy special effects hold up? Is like the writing good enough or something like that? And the same thing with books. Like books, you kind of have to look at it a longer time frame, but along the same lines. So
Well, I was going to say the first thing that I think about, and ironically it's not something that I've actually played myself, so I don't know, it's going to be tenuous at best. But you remember when Resident Evil 2 got remastered?
I do, yeah.
That was hugely popular for a while, and I was far too young when it originally came out. I've looked at the remastered version, as in watched people playing it, and man, it looks pretty cool, especially the fact that it has a mechanic that you don't really see in any other game, which is one constant invincible enemy.
So I personally never played that game. I was never into horror games. I was old enough at the time. I think I was either in middle school or high school when it came out, and I had a friend who did play it. And I think I watched people play it at his house, and but I never personally played it. I'm familiar with the core concept of the game, having seen plenty of videos about it when the remaster did come out. I like that idea, though. That idea of having... You're not so much... It's an enemy that you can't defeat. It's just an immovable force. The enemy at that point, I think, becomes an obstacle in the game.
Yeah. It's got... Basically, it's... If you can imagine Slender Man, as I'm sure we all can.
Yeah.
If you were, like, thick. If you were a thick boy. And he walks slowly...
That is
you can hear him coming before he appears. You hear his boots stomping around the corridors. And he doesn't run, he doesn't move fast. He just constantly follows you throughout, like, half the game. You just have to keep moving around, otherwise he will catch up to you.
That is a sentence I don't think I ever thought I would hear in my life. If you can imagine Slender Man, except he's a thick boy.
Well,
oh boy.
I'm sure there's fan art of it somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, in that case, remasterings, that's, this is probably going to come through on the mic, but I'm pouring more tea. I have a little teapot here, which is Um, but and a small cup, which normally is a very good way to keep my tea warm. At this point, it's a very good way to have liquid sounds coming through my microphone.
I can't hear it, so I think you're fine. But anyway, go on.
But thinking about remasterings and stuff, one thing I played very recently was the Final Fantasy VII remake, and that's not a remastering. That one they legitimately remade the game entirely.
Is it actually Final Fantasy VII then?
Yes, so it's the story, but instead of here, how to describe this? So, if the original game, for those that don't know, was just a multi-disc epic on the PlayStation 1. It was 3 discs long. You played, it probably was something like 120 hours, if not more, of gameplay. And the first disc, well, not even the whole first disc, about 2/3 of the way through the first disc is where the remake ends. So what they did was they are completely remaking the game. Fully voice-acted cutscenes, gorgeous graphics. Like, the gameplay is entirely different. The first one was a turn-based RPG. This one is still an RPG, but it's a hack-and-slash RPG.
I see. So the narrative is the same.
The narrative's the same.
The game itself is different.
Yeah, they've added some nuance to it. They've added a couple segments and, like, some stuff that wasn't in the first one, simply because, I guess, it was either cut or they didn't have room. So, the remake is 2/3 of the way through probably about a quarter of the first game. But it plays out for about, I think I beat it in something like 40 hours.
Right. Yeah, growing up, Final Fantasy was always kind of more my brother's thing. I didn't play it too much. I remember on the DS and the PSP we had a few Final Fantasy games, and they were pretty darn fun. It was the ones that were like turn-based. And I loved the little figures, especially the. God, I'm gonna butcher all of the characters. There were like some guards who had like duck faces, except they looked like cool. They're like cool orange ducks with awesome armor, and I always wanted them because it was just a completely random creature made up.
That is one of the things that this is going to lead into a topic I have written down for the second segment today. So we'll probably call
Duck
it back
creatures?
to this. Yes, duck creatures. No, I'm talking about those older Final Fantasy games.
Okay. Yeah.
There's
Tactics I played. Sorry.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics. I was about to say that sounds like FF Tactics. For me, the first Final Fantasy game I played was Final Fantasy X. And
really, that's pretty late. Wasn't that awful?
It was on the PS2. Yeah, that one came out in early 2000s. I wasn't big into the Final Fantasy games. I played, so saying that's the first one I played is a little bit that's kind of not true. I had a friend who had Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, but I didn't have a PlayStation 1 as a kid.
Right, it was the first one that you owned and got to play through properly, as opposed to just having a one-off kind of thing.
Exactly, maybe. Yeah. I had a Nintendo 64 as a kid.
Yeah. I watched a video on Reddit recently of some wife bought her husband a Nintendo 64, and the look on his face was just priceless. There's definitely a generation that is just like, oh my god, the Nintendo 64 was the best thing since sliced bread.
I am gonna circle it back to the topic though.
Yes, sorry.
No. The Nintendo 64 was a very good place to circle it back, because that is like the very first era of 3D polygonal graphics. So you have some games, I think on the N64, that while the gameplay and stuff still hold up very well, the graphics are a little painful to look at. And I'm going to piss people off saying this, but I think Mario 64 is a good example of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
I mean, Mario's nose is like a square in that game, and he just it looks a bit rough, but it can still be fun. But I think you need to have that nostalgia factor. I personally know I do, but I don't want.
I mean, by that same logic, though, everyone knows about the low polygon count of Lara Croft in Tomb Raider, but that was that. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, she was very well endowed.
Yes, um, that always became like a meme, as it were, on its own.
So
In
much
later
so
years.
that they put a like a fake cheat code into one of the games that like you could take her top off with a
Really? Oh my
certain.
god.
They said you could take her top off with a certain button combination, but if you did, she exploded and you lost. And you
Oh
had
yeah, I've actually heard about that.
Yeah, so it was the developers just messing with people. Like they
Oh, that's
leaned into it.
brilliant.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But again, that was a PlayStation 1 game, so I never got to play it myself.
No, yeah, again, that was. I mean, I played lots of plays. I loved PlayStation 1, far more than PlayStation 2. But, yeah, a lot of the shooting games at that time were above my age range. I was
Yeah.
playing Penguin games and Bust a Move, if you know what that was.
Yep. Oh my! So not only do I know what Bust a Move was, so it's no mystery that I think I've told you this before, but my mother was a bit of a gamer as well.
Oh, yes, yes.
To the point where when we had
Halo Master, I've heard.
not so much, but she did quite embarrassingly for one of my friends beat him in a match in high school. We paired him up with his girlfriend who wasn't very good at Halo, but neither was my mother, and we paired my mother up who had never played before with one of my friends who's actually quite good at the game. Everyone is like behind her, like coaching her along, and she actually managed to kill him a few times, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But no, in the NES era, she actually had her own NES, and I had an N64, but she had the game Bust a Move for the N64, and
Yeah.
those were her style of games. Like she played Centipede, she played Bust a Move, and I can't remember what she had on the NES, but she played a few games on that too. But it was much more those like arcadey puzzle. Oh, Pac-Man. She had Pac-Man.
I could never get along with Pac-Man. But yeah, like even my grandfather used to play Bust a Move with me and my brother. Like
Yeah.
it was that much of a literally anyone could play it. It was just pretty pictures and smiles.
Yeah, you go back. I think thinking about like games that have held up. I think when you go back to that 2D era, the arcadey kind of game, because they were trying to appeal to as many people as possible,
Yeah.
rather than trying to push technology. And back then, I think you go back to any of those games, pick them up again, and start playing. They're still just enjoyable. I mean,
I mean, I think it's...
look at Tetris. We're still playing that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never played Tetris as a kid because I didn't really understand it. I couldn't fit them together quickly as a kid. But there was definitely a point where I started playing Tetris and Minesweeper. Got really into Minesweeper. Holy moly.
Oh God.
Which is just like the saddest thing. But it's weirdly you have to use your brain if you want to be really good at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it can just be a chill thing.
Yeah, you can either take it at a decent pace, or you could try to go for a good time and something like that. Yeah, I think the two first games that I played a lot of, because so my very first video game console period was a Nintendo Entertainment System, like the original one, and I got it as a hand-me-down for one of my cousins out in the Midwest.
A SNES?
No. He got a SNES, so I got his old NES.
Right.
The Nintendo Entertainment System came out in 1985.
recognize that name.
Yeah, the original one.
I mean, bear in mind that was like 12 years before I was born.
Well, yeah, it was 3 years before I was born. So, but it was. Here. Let me. Well, fill airtime while I send you a picture of this, so that you know.
Okay.
You probably have heard of it. But
Right.
you.
I mean, I had a. Well, my brother got a Nintendo 64 when I must be about 12 or something. and we didn't have many games, but we had Mario Kart on it. And I remember playing it as a 12-year-old. I didn't really appreciate fine things. I could appreciate a game that was so old, but still played so well.
Yeah.
The Mario Kart. I mean, Mario Kart's timeless, I think.
Mario...
Although, actually, these days, I don't think it's as good as it used to be. I think they've added too many stupid things to it, and it's kind
too
of
many
lost
bells
it.
and whistles. There's a lot of games that have kind of fallen into that kind of trap. And I think that is one of the reasons like older games tend to actually, like really older games tend to hold up better, because they were simpler. Like they had a very like efficient and fun gameplay loop that you could go through over and over again and actually enjoy. But bringing it back to the NES, so I just sent you a picture of what it looked like.
Crikey, that's
yeah.
That reminds me of my like first computer, the white box.
Yeah. So I had that. It was a hand-me-down from one of my cousins out in the Midwest. He had got a SNES, and that was that predated the SNES. So he gave me that and his older games. So my first games were the original Mario Brothers, and Duck Hunt, which was where you had the laser light gun and you could shoot ducks on the TV screen.
Did they remaster Duck Hunt? Because I know Duck Hunt, but I don't think I ever knew it came from a game this old, from a console this old.
Yeah, it was one of the originals, so I don't know if they remastered it. They must have, because it was an insanely popular game.
Was it a 2D side-scroller or
nope? So the way
hunting game?
So Mario was a 2D side-scroller platforming game, but you know that one. Duck Hunt. So what it was you had like a field of polygon grass at the bottom there, and ducks would fly up out of the grass and zigzag across the screen kind of slowly, and you had a light gun that you would point at the TV, and when you pulled the trigger, it would read the pixels around where you were pointing and see if it was the duck. The ducks were very different colored from the background. Yeah. And you would either hit them or not hit them. And the 5 or 6 year old me was enthralled with this game. I played quite a bit of it. I mean, you could always
guns online.
you could always cheese the game by sticking the gun right next to the screen, but it was more satisfying to be further back and actually accurate.
Yeah.
This has become the nostalgia segment.
Well, yeah. I was never a fan of. Well, I don't know. I think my parents weren't a massive fan of me using hunting games, that kind of thing. I think there's probably a cultural difference between here and America, possibly.
Maybe just a little bit of one.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I never really played that kind of game. I think I wouldn't enjoy it now, not because I wouldn't dislike it because of the morals of it. I would think I would dislike it because I would not have the patience to do the whole slog through a jungle, use your special whistle, take aim at a very particular part, and if you miss, you have to chase it through.
Oh, are you talking about like literal hunting?
No, well, no, I'm talking about that's what hunting games are.
Oh, yeah. The modern hunting. But I think that goes back to what we were just talking about, that like games in general have kind of become overburdened with like so much extra crap. Like in the like that game that I just described, duck flies up, you shoot it. To make it more difficult, now 2 ducks are flying up and you have to shoot both of them. And there's a certain time limit. You get a score, but for how quickly you can shoot them. If you miss, you lose points. You have a certain amount of ammo, and that was it. That was the entire game, and it was fun because of that. Now,
these days,
like you're saying, it's you stalk them through the woods. You use a certain kind of whistle. You have to worry about what kind of rifle you're using. Is there bullet drop off? Like all of this. Some of it.
And there's so many kinds of bullet drop off in so many different games. Maddening.
Yeah.
How many different ways a bullet can fly.
All right. So before because we could talk about like do this with games forever. I do want to briefly touch on movies and books along this same
Okay.
line about how they've kind of what older ones that still hold up versus newer ones that, or what am I trying to say, that don't actually hold up, that people will
Yeah.
watch and go like, wow,
Okay.
that looks like shit. I don't remember it looking that shit. I'm
Okay.
gonna start with.
You-
Do you want to start with movies or books?
Well, I've got one that's both.
Okay,
I was
go
going
for
to say,
it.
do you want to start with one, or shall I just launch?
Nope, no,
Okay.
go for it. Go for it. I got one in mind, but I'll go after you.
And I think it's one that you'll have strong opinions about, because I think everyone has.
Yep.
The Hobbit.
Okay.
Brilliant book. I read it as a kid.
Hmm.
Then several years later, the film came out, and it was very upsetting.
Really? Okay. So I
I did
I
not enjoy
personally I saw the movies first and then I listened to the audiobooks. So I never actually read the books, but this was all later. Like this was in the last few years. So I saw the movies. God, it was in the mid 2010s. So like 2014, 2015, 2016 kind of time frame. And
Right.
the book I listened to on audiobook. It was one of the things I got to listen to while I was like traveling. So if I was on a plane or something like that, so it would have been like in the last couple of years that I listened to the audiobooks.
Hmm.
I've gone back and actually watched the movies before. I did enjoy them. The books, I will say, having listened to both The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy on audiobook now, there's quite a lot of just nothing happening in those books.
Yeah? You think so?
I really do think there's quite a few chapters where they're literally just like walking and walking and walking, and then they have a little bit of character dialogue, and then they're walking and describing the beautiful scenery. It's a very, I mean, if that's what you're looking, it gives the impression of a long epic journey, and like,
Yeah.
and there's that mystical and magical kind of element that goes along with it.
Mm.
And if that's what you're looking for, then the books do it. The books are kind of, I think, a masterclass in it. I, having seen the movies first, was a little bored at times, and it was a bit of a slog getting through them.
Ah.
But tell me, no, I want to hear your thoughts now that I've kind of given you, because me not having read them as a child and having read the books after I watched the movies, that's my take on them.
Yeah. Well, much like any books that have been turned into movies, of course they have to cut things out. But I feel like they really did just cut out all the moments when something wasn't dying. You understand what I mean?
I can,
Uh,
yeah.
It's great to have these amazing action scenes, and I love them.
Mm.
But you have to have, dare I say it, like the lows to have the highs. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
lows in it being a bad moment to have a good moment, so much as when they are passing through those peaceful glens and they're seeing this amazing thing that they just stop to look at or whatever, and then you have them being captured by the trolls, and then the whole sequence where spoilers for the movie and the book.
I mean, it's a Lord of the Rings.
I mean, yeah, it's without saying,
there's
but-
going to be trolls.
The way that the trolls are defeated, and
Yeah.
I don't know, it was such a beautiful piece of work, I think.
Okay,
The book.
I-
And maybe it was just the fact that it was a book.
Mm.
I think it was better laid out as a book. I don't think it needed to be made into a film.
Okay. So I kind of maybe let me organize my thoughts for a sec. I see what you're saying there, and I actually agree with most of those points. There were parts in the book. So there were parts of I know the parts you're talking about, like how the trolls were defeated and whatnot. I did like the book version better. And you're right. In the movies, they did like cut out a lot of that downtime just so that like but because the book was so long, I think they had to cut out almost all of the downtime, so it seems like they're going to like action
Yeah,
to
they have
action
to
to
do it.
action to action, and you do need that downtime to appreciate those peak moments of action. But when I think of the movie, the action scenes are actually some of the least memorable parts for me, which I think probably says a lot about why I did end up going through the entire book, despite the kind of slow bits kind of dragging on for a little bit for me. Like my favorite part of all of the Hobbit movies, my absolute favorite, is at the very, very beginning, where all the dwarves are coming into his house,
Yeah.
and the like all the singing and the eating and just like, and then at the very end when they're singing that kind of like sad like song about the mountain and everything.
Wonderful, yeah.
So that's not a big action piece in the book or the movie, but I really, really enjoyed just that whole sequence in the movie. That's something I actually preferred in the movie compared to the book. But
Yes.
the part you're thinking about, the one where the trolls of spoiler alert, the trolls have captured some people from the book. I'll keep it relatively spoiler free. Have captured some people, and one of the main characters has to think of a clever way to get them out. I do definitely prefer the way they handled that in the book versus the movie. Because the book was more
Hello?
cleverness. The movie was more Hollywood. If that makes
The
sense.
the music that you brought up, I won't lie. I'm not sure what the official song was officially called, but the Fire on the Mountain song.
Yeah.
I was singing that for weeks.
Oh my god. Yeah.
They did
Well,
that so well.
the thing is, one thing I really like is I did listen to an audiobook. They actually picked out a guy that did the audiobook reading. Not only had a wide range of voices he could do for the characters, he could actually sing. So he sang the songs that were in the book. The guy doing the audiobook reading, which I think added a lot to me, listening through it. It would have sucked if the guy couldn't hold a tune in a bucket.
Yeah, and one of the other things that kind of surprised, I truly don't want to stick on the Hobbit for too long,
Mm.
but they got to the mountain with the dragon
Yeah.
so much faster. Like, in my opinion, it felt like the book was 2/3 them getting to the mountain, and then maybe a third or less actually in the mountain. That's what I can kind of remember it from the
Yeah.
book.
So this
They
was... Go on.
did
Go
like
on.
the whole journey in one film, and then spent 2 whole films just in the mountain.
I know what you're talking about, and this is this is why I think I remember so much more of the very first movie and so much less
Yeah.
of the other two. It's almost like they decided after the first movie to make it a trilogy. Because if they were gonna make it a trilogy, like, because the book was only one book, like The Hobbit was one book. The Lord of the Rings trilogy actually was 3 books, and they had 3 movies. The Hobbit was one book that they made into 3 movies, and it was a shorter book, I think, than the later Lord of the Rings book. Some fan out there of Lord of the Rings is going to be pissed at me for saying that. I might not be right, but either way, it's one book that they chunked out into 3 movies. And if they were going to make it that long, like have 3 movies to tell that one book, they could have kept in some more of the subtlety that you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
but instead they like made the first movie and they chunked everything down to make the journey faster. And then when they got to the mountain, they're like, "Oh shit, we want to make a third movie too." So they had to stretch that out. I think it was poorly planned. Is a good way to put that. And the people doing it were people who didn't necessarily understand books, and maybe they worked on too many big Hollywood movies.
Yeah, you said you had some other books that were.
I had one book in
Relevant
particular.
topic.
Yeah, one book in
Okay.
particular that I was thinking of. And again, this is one I listened to on audiobook, so keep that in mind. But The Count of Monte Cristo. Have you ever read it?
Heard of it, not read it.
It's a pretty old one. It came out in like 1848 or something like
Yeah.
that. So a lot of the references and things are dated in it. I personally really enjoyed the book, but it's another one. It kind of shows how writing at the time was different than now, because they spend tons and tons of time talking about, you know, political situation,
Yeah.
peerage ranks and like the way nobility were dealing with each other and just in idle conversation. Just it literally was like slices of these people's everyday life, and they use that to characterize the characters. It's one of those things that I think in a modern book would annoy people,
Oh, is
but
it?
because the book was at the period, I think, and a lot of the references don't make any sense to modern readers because they spend so much time going through them. I think it actually helps to understand what the hell's going on in a lot of sections. But I'll admit there were times going through the book where I literally just zoned out and was listening, and it's just like
Yeah.
I understand that this character's talking to this other character. I don't give a crap what they're saying. But the book itself, very, very good.
Yes. That's good. Well, I'm sure you remember a short while ago I was reading quite a few of the older books.
Hmm.
Because I read through Phantom of the Opera, and that was a brilliant book. I would recommend that book.
Yeah, I've
That
never
was. Sorry?
I've never gone through it, so yeah, that's
Ah.
something that I need to. And I remember we talked about this at the time.
That was written in 1909,
Hmm.
so a fair bit later. But and I enjoyed that so much, I went on to read The Three Musketeers, another excellent book. A little bit longer, and I feel, but and then I went on to because I heard about it so much, and especially from Duncan
Hmm.
in the server,
Yeah.
Les Miserables, which
See-
is actually written 1 year after The Count of Monte Cristo, apparently.
I didn't realize it was a book. Like I knew it was a
Yeah.
musical, and I've obviously seen the movie. I love the movie. I didn't realize it
I've
was a
not seen
book
the
as
movie.
well.
Yes, the 1845 it was released, and so I was listening to an audiobook
Hmm.
because when you get busted everywhere all the time, it's a
Yeah.
good thing to do. The opening section, I never got past the opening section because the opening section is so many hours long, and I'm sorry for people who love it, but it is dreary as all hell. It follows like a priest,
Yeah.
um,
I'm assuming.
who's just a really good priest. He's a really nice guy. He helps out people in his village, and it goes on like that for hours.
Is it the priest that helps out Jean Valjean?
Yes,
Okay.
Jean Valjean arrives after X number of hours as this criminal hooligan that no one wants to be associated with,
And then the priest.
and the priest lets him into his house.
Yes. Okay. So that's so basically, it starts off like okay. So it starts off. That's interesting. It starts off following the priest because he's a relatively minor character in both the movie
Right.
and the musical.
Okay.
Maybe that's why.
Oh, fudging hell! And there's so many names it throws at you, and I'm terrible at remembering names.
Oh my god, that was the problem I had. Again, going back, that was the problem I had with Count of Monte Cristo. There were tons of character names, like tons
Yeah.
of them. So another
I mean,
book.
maybe if they were like modern day names, like it would have been at the time,
Yeah.
then they'd be more memorable. But when they're saying French names from the 1900s, it's just like in one ear out the other.
So many fucking noises are popping in the background of this. I really need to be a little bit less professional. Xbox, turn off.
More professional, do you mean?
No, I mean less professional because at this point it's a shit show. So just deal.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's fine. I think the lawnmower's going to be starting soon anyway, outside.
All right. So now that the Xbox has been shut up, so that was honestly a problem that I had with Count of Monte Cristo 2. Was again just names and names and names. And by the end of the book, I was starting to figure out who some of the people were. But going through it, I probably needed a flow chart to remember who all of these people were.
It's not so bad when you're listening to an audiobook, because generally they put on voices quite often.
Yeah, and you can
for
kind
different
of
characters.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when there's 38 characters in the story, then the guy's gonna run out of voices.
Yeah.
So another book that I own a physical copy of, and I also tried going through it with the audiobook, and I failed both times to finish it, was War and Peace. It's another one of those classic books. It's set in like Tsarist Russia after, I want to say, either the Franco-Prussian War or before it.
Right. Do you have a general date?
Like 1800s. The book
Hmm.
came out, I think, in the late 1800s, and it was set earlier. I honestly, it's about like the war and peace between these great nations and how it
Yeah.
focuses again
I've
mostly
definitely
on the
heard of it.
yeah. It's a book that I've heard is a classic. It's one of these big, like, thick books about just politics and strategy and these
Right.
like I don't know how people I'm courtly politics. That's the word I'm looking for. And
Okay.
I've gotten probably about, so the audiobook is broken up into two parts because the thing is absolutely massive, and it's actually sold in two parts on the audiobook form because it's so massive. It's just
Wow.
basically like it's something like 70 hours long.
Jeebus.
I I may be exaggerating that, but it's a ridiculously like long number of hours. The physical
Yeah.
book is like a fucking dictionary. The thing is
Oh,
enormous.
quick thing. I just looked because I got Audible up on my phone.
Hmm.
Les Mis is 62 hours long.
Yeah, so I'm probably not exaggerating when I say this thing is 70
Probably
hours.
not.
But it's an absolutely enormous book, and I was enjoying it. But it's something that you need to listen to continuously because just like those other two books, they throw characters at you, they throw names at you, they throw the politics and locations and all these details that are, I think, important, but they're hard to keep track of everything if you like listen to the book for say 2 hours on Monday and then 3 hours
God,
on
yeah,
Saturday, and then if you're listening to it every day, then you can probably keep track of it. But if you take a break in between it, you're gonna lose track and go like, who the hell was this guy again?
Mm,
Like, I and I think that's something that has changed moving to like a modern setting with things. A lot of media now is more streamlined, and I think there's definitely an audience for that old style where you have tons of detail, tons of characters, and just this
mm.
massive world. But
A rich atmosphere.
yeah, but it's presented very differently now, and I think it's done so for a reason because a lot of people, for better or for worse, have a hard time parsing through all of that like thick detail and information. So that's, I think we're actually coming to 38 minutes here, so I think that's a good place for us to end the first segment. So I'm going to do kind of
Hmm.
a little, like I said at the beginning, going to do a bit of a soft outro here. This, if you're listening on Monday, the 24th, this is where this segment is going to end. But if you're listening to the complete thing next Saturday, then you're going to be able to just keep listening, and there's just going to be a little bit of a click because I'm going to turn the recording off and then turn it back on again for segment number
Hmm.
2.
So I can get more coffee. Good God.
I need a little bit more tea as well. All right.
Yep.
Thank you for listening, and if you're listening to the full thing, you'll hear us in And we're back. So if you're listening to this on the individual segments, this is segment 2, which should be coming out on Wednesday if I can actually keep track of a release schedule. And if you're listening to the main podcast, you heard us disappear like maybe 2 seconds ago. Segment 2, also a stable segment. First one, topics. Second segment is always just us talking about any kind of media. Could be games, could be books. Just kind of a free discussion with an emphasis on things that we've seen recently, either both of us or just one of us that we actually liked. So only mildly different than the first topic from today, because we were talking about like media specifically and how it aged or didn't age well. So this one, I wanted to get this started right off the bat. with a show that I know we've both watched that I finally finished. Over my little brief holiday to the beach, I finished Peaky Blinders, finally. Season 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I finally got to the end
Without
of it.
me?
What, have you not? I thought you had finished it with Alicia.
No!
Oh, god damn it. Well,
Remember, I can't watch it in my country. I mean, what?
Wait,
Not that I've been watching it.
They still don't show it.
Wait, did they change that?
I don't know. I thought maybe it had been long enough.
Blab for a second while I
So, a little bit of background to this. Peaky Blinders is a show set in the post-World War I era in the UK. So, like, from the late, 1919 all the way up to, the 1930s. And it follows this street gang in kind of the northern areas of England, Birmingham, if I remember right. And they're kind of this gang that's famous for carrying razor blades in their flat caps, and they cut people with them in their gang fights. It follows in particular these three brothers, the Shelby family, and the Peaky Blinders is the name of the gang. And it just follows them through their exploits, how their struggles, inter-gang conflicts as they try to build up their small street gang into something bigger and more legitimate. What Blue's talking about there, season 5 came out, and in the US, I could watch it on Netflix, but not in the UK. You have to watch it on the BBC when it comes out on TV.
Yep, the place where it's set, and it's all about can't freaking watch it. It's a tragedy. Tragedy? That was a tragedy and a travesty in one. It's that bad.
A tragedy. We've invented a new word.
Yes. Your royal tragedy. Hang on, so do you have season 6 over there?
No, so season 6 is coming out over here. It's also going to be released before it is in the UK, by the way.
Okay, how many episodes are there in season 5?
So only 6. Every season is 6 1-hour episodes.
I think they must have released it in the UK now then, because
Okay,
I can see 6 episodes, sorry, season 5.
It only took them 3/4 of a year.
And the plague, yes. I think that's probably what did it, honestly.
Yeah, trying to get it out, give people. There's been a big push these days to get people more in-home entertainment, since people aren't going out to see entertainment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I finally finished the whole thing. That's actually good news. We can actually finish it then. Maybe on one of these movie nights, you can catch up. Yeah. But I did, so I won't spoil anything then. But the ending is pretty intense.
Right.
It is.
I think I'm on the last. We got the last episode. I'm pretty sure.
So if I remember right, there was the big party at his house with the performance, right?
Yep.
And then there was
Polly shot the lady that we don't like.
Yep. And did we get into the next I thought we got into the next episode, because I seem to remember some of the stuff that was going on simultaneously in the next episode.
Yeah. That next episode is the last episode, I think. And we got halfway through it, and you passed out in a chair.
This is what we get. Yeah, we were watching this at what is it? Fucking 1 a.m. I was drinking my whiskey, and yeah, I fell asleep.
1 a.m. for you, 6 a.m. for me.
Yeah, that was probably a bad decision. But there's a reason we're talking about kind of in vagaries around this series, because I do highly recommend it. And it's maintained its quality into the later, some shows kind of fall off. They have weak seasons, they have strong seasons. I'd argue season 3 might be a little bit weak.
Definitely better and worse season there.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the first season is just class.
The first season, even if you don't keep watching, the first season is definitely worth a watch. It is a masterclass in this new TV used to be kind of where the shit B tier, C tier actors went to, and then the big Hollywood movies, that's where the A-listers went. But now it's the other way around. People, they're finding out that people are really capable and really interested in seeing these long form dramas that have really good character development, really good cinematics, just really good plot writing. and that can be maintained over multiple seasons. And not necessarily these 2-hour blockbusters. Those are becoming more flash and spectacle, whereas the TV dramas are actually having good writing and good character development and things like that. Peaky Blinders is a perfect example of that, I think.
Or at least, sorry, I've been looking stuff up while you've been chatting. Apparently, season 5 was released in 2019. Season 6 is meant to be 2021.
Okay.
So they're taking 2 years to release it, so I'm expecting good things.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain global situation that might be a reason for them taking an extra year as well.
Yeah. That also makes... Yeah, I'm going to shut up because I'm really done. Yeah, no, that probably is it. God, I haven't even been thinking about that. Like, people who make computer games must not be loving it, but like it affects them far less as a media than it does movies and TV shows.
It has had some specific effects. Transitioning to games, actually, 2 games that I'm really looking forward to. Halo Infinite, because I'm a Halo fanboy. And also, although they haven't done a really good one, in my opinion, like a really good one, probably since Halo,
Reach?
I would say Halo 2. Some people might disagree and say Halo 3. Reach was still a very good game, but it's where they started to move away from it being a Halo game. Because Halo is an arena shooter.
Too many bells and whistles.
Yeah, Halo, again, it goes back to what we were saying in the earlier segment. Too many bells and whistles. Halo was... Like, when Halo was at its apex, Halo 1, 2, and 3, like, they had... a set variety of guns. They had vehicles which were very well balanced and developed, except for the Halo 1 siege tank. That one could destroy anyone except the person with a pistol who could just pick the guy out of the driver's seat in like 2 seconds.
Right. This sounds like a spurious Kaiser fact, but okay.
Yeah, fine. I'll stick to the point. But Halo Infinite is still kind of moving in the same direction that I think Reach mistakenly took the series. They started adding all these extra enhanced mobility things where you could sprint, you could use a jetpack, you could do all this crazy stuff. And what they realized is that most people were just taking the sprint, so they made sprint a permanent part of Halo, which there are shooters where that is the... like what you want, but they're typically the fast-paced kind of shooters, like your Call of Duties or your Battlefields. Halo is an arena shooter where you should... everyone... It's less about realism and more about, like, balance and consistency.
And on that point, there's a real flag that I see in games when you hit the shift key, whether it speeds you up or slows you down, defines the kind of game it is. So, CSGO, you walk at the fastest speed like normal. If you hit shift, you start walking slowly.
Yeah, and there's less audible movement, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Rainbow Six Siege, you start sprinting. COD, you start sprinting. And I feel like they are a lot more... To be fair, you don't think Rainbow Six Siege is a run and gun game, but I think it really has... Like, everyone says, oh, you can do all these incredibly cool kills, and you can, if you're on the defending side.
Yes.
If you're on the attacking side, you gotta be the one that walks... You gotta be the mouse that walks through the traps.
Yeah. You're blowing shit apart. In my case, breaking doors open with hammers.
Yeah, it does become a run and gun game. That is what it is when you're on the attacker side, I feel like.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring us back quickly, because we are getting off in the weeds. The reason I brought up Halo Infinite was because you were saying that the game developers are probably affected a little bit less. And the reason that I think it's true to an extent, because you are able to work from home a lot of the time, but you also need this powerful development hardware. So we're seeing games like Halo Infinite being delayed by like months. It was going to come out holiday season this year. You've got games like Cyberpunk 2077, which I am super stoked to to play that game.
Are you?
I am so excited to play. Well, okay, this is the developers that made The Witcher 3, and that game was fucking spectacular. I absolutely
just
love that game.
getting flashbacks to No Man's Sky. There's so much hype for this game, and
That
I
is
think
one
it's going to
thing.
turn out like Watch Dogs.
Unlike No Man's
Well,
Sky,
no.
though, so No Man's Sky, that game, there was tons and tons of hype, but it was an untested indie developer that had like all this funding like behind it. Same thing with Watch Dogs. It was like
No, Watch Dogs was AAA, wasn't it?
it was a AAA game. It was a AAA game, and it had so much hype, all these teaser trailers and commercials and this cool stuff around it, and it ended up being just like a Grand Theft Auto knockoff with some hacking mechanics
bad
thrown in.
Grand Theft Auto knockoff.
But my point is, Cyberpunk, I think the hype is earned because this studio, I've watched them for a while. Like, they made Witcher 1. It was a really rough PC game with a lot of complex mechanics in it, but very good story, very well done game. Well, I won't say well done gameplay. The gameplay was kind of an ass, but it was deep and complex and at least consistent. But if a little clunky. Witcher 2 fixed a lot of that. It streamlined a lot. There was still some rough bits, but the story still great. Witcher 3, excellent gameplay, excellent story, excellent graphics. It was just a masterclass. And it had a bunch of extra bells and whistles like most modern games, but they didn't feel like they held the game down. Like, there's this whole like mechanic around using potions and oils and things that only becomes relevant at the higher difficulties. I just played the game on normal and ignored it because that wasn't my thing. I liked the sword combat with a little bit of the magic in there, and I really was there for the story and a bit of the exploration in it. So I ignore. You were able to kind of ignore certain mechanics, but not others.
Right.
Anyway, I'm
Kind of like Skyrim.
I'm getting off in the weeds a little bit again, but the game itself was... So I think them now making Cyberpunk is like... It's got a rich story to it because it comes from like the tabletop game, Cyberpunk 2020. Ironically, the game that came out in like, I think the 80s or 90s, it was set this year. They were thinking there was... I think they had a little bit too much ambition for what the future was going to look like. But... So it's got that story background, and they've clearly like cut their teeth and have been improving game after game. So I personally think the hype around this game is earned instead of it just being artificial like it was with No Man's Sky.
Yeah. No, I don't know, I'm still... If it turns out like... God, what was that game called? It was so good, I forgot the name. The Deus Ex second one.
Yeah,
Mankind's Revolution.
Well, hold on. So there's 3 games. Oh no, 4 actually. So there's the original Deus Ex. Then there was Deus Ex Invisible War, which was a meh game. The first one was like revolutionary at the time. It was a PC game. It was one of the first ones to introduce like RPG mechanics to a shooter. And very good. I've played it, but going back to our earlier segment, it's one that probably doesn't hold up too well. It kind of looks like the whole thing was, made 2 or 3 years earlier than it actually was, because it was kind of rough. But then they made Mankind Human Revolution, which was the first...
That was a great game.
It was. I agree.
I can't say about the... Actually, I've played the one after that, and I played about an hour of it, and I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, Mankind Divided. I didn't like that one very much either. I bought it actually when it was on super sale around the same time you did, and playing through it, I wasn't impressed either.
The third one though, it's a real mark of a good game when it's fully a story game. It's completely story. Even the side quests are story.
Yeah. And
I must have played through the whole thing 6 or 7 times at least, and it's not a short game.
No, it isn't.
Because I wanted to try all the different ways of doing it, and don't get me wrong, the ending is pretty lame. I won't spoil it.
Yeah, basically, if you can picture this, you get to the end, and there's the Ending Tron 3000, where you just push a button and you get an ending.
It's the Mass Effect effect.
Yeah.
But No, that's kind of that's my idea of the 20, what was it, something 2020? What was it?
Cyberpunk 2077 is the game that's
That's the
coming out.
one. Close enough.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's going to be like Deus Ex on steroids, or it's going to be Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
And I
And
really hope it's Deus Ex.
I really do as well. I do as well, because everything I've seen about the game has looked good, and I know the studio has some solid, like, branching storytelling chops behind it, and it's actually got the backing of the guy who made the Cyberpunk tabletop game. Like, he has been consulting with them on it and working with them on it, and everything about it looks like it's there. It looks like they're swinging for the fences, because the game was supposed to come out this spring, but then it got delayed because they're like, the game's and I love this about the studio. They're like, the game's not done. We don't want to release it, kind of half baked and patch it later. We want it to be ready when we release it. So they delayed it till September. Now with the whole situation, again, I'm avoiding this because this is going on. I'm avoiding saying the actual word because it's going on YouTube, and they don't like talking about that.
Yeah.
Because of that, they've delayed it further. So now it's coming out this, like, late this fall. I think it's November sometime. But I'm really looking forward to it. Honestly, they could delay it another 3 months and I wouldn't care, as long as it comes out how they want it to come out. Because I actually, unlike most big name studios these days, I actually trust these guys because they've made quality games before, and they seem to give a crap about what the fans of the games actually say.
Yeah, it's always very obvious when a publisher has been listening to the fan base, and there are some golden examples of where people have done that, and it's like the Sonic film.
Oh yeah,
Everyone was like, that hedgehog looks disturbing. And they went through so much effort and cost and time.
To
rectify
redesign
it.
them. Yep.
And it was a really good film, but I still haven't seen it. It's what
I need to see it
We
too.
say this every week.
It's on my list, but because I remember following it at the time. Like, I don't typically go to the theater to watch movies at all. I typically wait until they come out on, like, either Amazon or Netflix or somewhere, or somebody or previously, when I was traveling more often, when I was on a plane and they had movie selections there, that is when I typically watch movies. So I knew I was never going to watch it in the theaters, but I was so happy when I saw that, because the first one I was like, oh god, Sonic fans get screwed over again.
Yeah.
And but they did. They listened to the feedback, went back, remade the character, and made it actually look more like Sonic. And I've seen clips from the new version of it, and goddamn, it looks good.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, in the age that we are, it's obviously children friendly, which means that some of it's going to be a bit it's mostly going to be very, very PC.
Yeah,
Which is fine. It's good, but there's also apparently some very funny moments that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still enjoy it.
so that's actually a decent transition. We've moved neatly from video games into movies. Thinking, there's another movie I can think of that did something very similar to that. Because what you're talking about is, like, it's safe for the kids, but there's some jokes in there for the parents too.
Yeah.
Another movie that I think did that extremely well was Shrek, the original one.
Yeah. Oh god, the original was so good. No one really talks about it, but I think the original was by far the best.
Oh, it was. I absolutely loved that. I think when that movie came out, I was 10 or 11, maybe a little older.
I was very young.
I can't remember. I think it came out in 1999 or maybe 2000, which means I would have been like 11 or 12.
It was VHS. We had it on.
But I absolutely loved that movie, but I went back and watched it later as, like, in college. We had a movie night and we watched that movie, and sure enough, I saw things in it. I'm like, oh, I didn't get this as a kid, but that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And so
some of the
But
adult jokes.
yeah, there was like the fact that the Lord in it was named Lord Farquaad or Farquaad, but if you say it fast,
Fuck
it's
what?
Lord Fuckwad.
What mind blown.
Did
I
you
didn't
not know?
actually
You
know.
never picked that up?
I haven't seen it in like half my life.
So they say it in a British accent, so it's like Lord Farquaad. And
Oh
so
my god,
as a
that was the
kid,
perfect pig's accent. You know, the three little pigs. That
yeah,
was that
yeah.
accent. Oh,
That's what I'm thinking of. Is they say it like that, and when I heard
yeah.
that as an adult, I'm like, oh my god, his name is Lord Fuckwad.
Wow. No, I never. Yeah, no, Farquaad. Wow. Yeah, no, I'm never gonna hear it differently anymore. Holy moly.
That's another movie that I think it was a masterclass in showing that,
Hmm.
like, it was a movie made for children,
Yeah.
mostly, but it was a family movie because there were jokes in there for the adults as well.
Yeah, I
But
mean the freaking love affair between the dragon and donkey. I mean that whole thing is very I'm gonna but at the same time it's very PG the way they did it.
it is.
Oh. As
Well,
to how they like in later films made donkey dragons,
yeah,
a bit weird.
they go a little bit like far with it. Like they were stretching
Yeah.
things by the later movies, but I think there's a reason for that. Like they were trying to cash in.
Yeah, I
I
mean like adorable donkey dragons, obviously going to be adorable, but
movie I think movie
a bit
2,
disturbing.
Shrek 2 probably had justification for existing. It was, it wasn't as good as the first one, but they
Shrek 2
kept the
is
plot
definitely good
going.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had the whole fairy godmother subplot and
I
going to
think
meet the parents and everything.
I kind of see it as a whole different genre.
Hmm.
I think it must have been quite far apart to be made, I think. Must have been several years.
I think it was only like a couple years, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll look this up while I'm talking. But
Okay.
yes, the whole Shrek 1 feels like a whole different world to Shrek 2. And yet they were both excellent films.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'll agree with that. Yeah, the feel of the movies was entirely different because
oh
the
shit,
first
you're
one,
right.
how far apart were they?
So Shrek, the original Shrek was 2001. I thought it was before 2000. I thought it was like the
Oh,
1990s.
all right, 2001. So
Yeah,
that means I would have been
and
12 or 13. Okay, go
I
on.
would I, I would have been four. Shrek 2 is 2004, so 3 years apart. That's really not that long.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, 2004. Yeah, it's 3 years. 3 years.
yeah.
It also probably
Uh,
explains why Shrek 2 probably. I didn't have that same revelation watching it again as an adult, because
no.
I was still basically a kid when I watched the first one, but by the time Shrek 2 came out, I was in high school and I was a teenager, so like I probably got most of the more the hidden things. So I didn't have that same perspective that I had on the first one.
Yeah.
But I think this is probably a very neat transition to one of the other things I had on my list. Um, so you know how Netflix has been doing this? Maybe they haven't in the UK, but in the US they've been putting out these kind of mini documentaries that are several episodes long. One of the first ones they did that I remember is The Toys That Made Us, and it's going through kind of the history and the impact of different like toy
Right.
brands like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Barbie, and how they've kind of affected culture, how they were originally developed, how media spawned out from them.
Gotcha. How psychopaths were typically Cuddle Me Elmo fans.
Oh
Yeah.
god. Cuddle Me Elmo was creepy as fuck. So was Furby, actually.
Was he?
Uh,
I mean, I know Furbies were. I did not like Furbies, possibly because of watching Gremlins. Um,
I see
I
my toy as a kid. I was a Transformers kid. I had Transformers.
yeah. Oh yeah, hell yeah. But just before we leave Furbies,
Mm.
right? I don't like them. E does like them. and one of my other friends from a while back, they really like them, and they still like them, and they're making this thing called, I think they might have made it now, something called a long Furby. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm sorry, a long Furby sounds like a sex toy.
Wow, no, it most certainly is not. But
I haven't heard of it, no, but the picture I have in my head is horrifying.
I mean, they've unstitched like the body of the Furby, right?
Just
And they've
that,
made it into this giant, like, long snake with the Furby's head on the end.
God, just that sentence. Yeah, okay, that is the picture I had in my head. That is the
Wow.
picture I had in my head, and it horrifies me if it's what I'm thinking of.
I mean, just look it up. I just, oof.
I may
I-
in post, whatever video we put
Creepy.
over this podcast, I may paste in the picture of what this thing looks like, just for the people who are actually watching and not just listening to see.
Just to induce those nightmares for people.
Oh yeah, I want this nightmare to be shared.
Yeah, but then there's some people who look at it and they'll be like, "Oh, it's so cute," and for those people, they can stop listening right now.
Because clearly you are a deviant. Go.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like, I don't understand how my friends, because yeah, these are people I talk to, and I'm like, I thought I knew you.
Oh my god. Anyway, the reason I brought that up, the reason I brought up the toy one, is they've released a new one recently called High Score.
Right. This
I was
is a
hanging
game,
out.
I take it.
Yeah, I was hanging out with Raymond yesterday, and while we were waiting for kind of the day to end, because it was a Friday, so he was still working, and so was his wife, and our other friend hadn't arrived yet. So I was just kind of chatting with him, and I was watching stuff on his Netflix account while I waited. And oh, by the way, complete non sequitur here. Great prank to play on people. Go, if you get access to their Netflix account, like at their house while they're doing something else, watch a bunch of really terrible movies. Like, sort by thumbs down, find the worst ones, and just start watching them, and then stopping and
Right.
watching them, because they will get the worst Netflix recommendations for like the next 6 or 7 months. We did this to my friend Tom a few years back. It was hilarious. Because he fell asleep and we had access to his Netflix account.
You're such a good friend.
I mean, to be fair, Juan, when we were over at his place, he had an Alexa, and we used it to just like add a bunch of like lube and fake dog testicles to his shopping cart on
fucking
Amazon.
hell. Dogs, what the fuck? Alright,
They make
before this podcast, for everyone listening in, we were like, oh, okay, let's keep it pretty clean.
that's I don't know
What
what's
the fuck?
It's a prank. It's a prank. They make fake dog testicles. They make like replacement ones, and they sell them on Amazon. we and I we added them to his shopping cart.
And the long Furbies.
Yeah, well, okay. I think the long Furby, okay. I'll bring it back.
Okay.
So, the reason I saw this show was I was at his place and I watched this show, High Score, like the first few episodes, and it was fascinating because it was looking at the history of video games, like how they started out, how they were like text adventures, and then they made like RPGs, how like the first Final Fantasy games were developed, where like Space Invaders came from, the transition from arcades to home consoles. It's a really fascinating series, and I just didn't know if your like UK Netflix actually had it, or if it was US only.
I don't want to say no because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any of them, but at the same time, I do not spend. I'm mostly on YouTube. I don't watch too much Netflix.
Right, I probably would have never seen this thing if I hadn't been over at my friend's house and it was recommended there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's. I generally every so often, every month or so, I'll have some epiphany where I'm like, oh my god, there's a really old movie that I really want to watch again.
And then you go through like Netflix.
One
or
out
Amazon
of two
and,
chances, yeah, 50-50 chance that I'll be able to watch it for free on Netflix, which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
And quite a few of our movie nights have come just straight from Netflix without
Yeah.
having to pay any additional.
Yeah,
It
courtesy.
is not an advertisement.
Yeah, exactly. Netflix is in no way sponsoring this podcast.
No, give us
Also,
money, and then
speaking of, fuck you, Amazon Prime, for making it nearly impossible to watch things over your service
oh
on the internet.
god, right?
Like, if we both happen to find like something free, then we can watch it, but we have to watch it simultaneously. If we try to have a movie night, like a theater mode sort of deal, it does not work. They block any kind of broadcast of it. Netflix, thank you, because you do allow that.
You legends, but still not a sponsor. Still
Yeah,
pay us
exactly.
money.
I was not paid to trash talk Amazon, and I was not paid to talk up Netflix. You just have a good service in Amazon Prime, where your service is normally good. When you want to watch shit with friends, your service is crap.
Yeah. Oh, so sorry. What was the point we were talking?
I have no idea. No, we were talking about media, and I was talking about how I'd seen this new series on Netflix. We really have. I feel like whenever this segment in particular, we are always going to get off in the weeds because it's just media in general.
Oh, just you wait for segment 3 with the chaos that is Blue Bears time.
I think the way that we've structured this, a little bit of inside baseball for y'all listening. The way that we've structured this podcast, I think it's going to get like progressively more chaotic as it goes on. Because in the beginning we have topics, and then the topics, we have a general unifying theme. Then we get to media, and then it's a little bit more of a free for all, but we still have that unifying theme of media. And then the last segment is just a wild card.
Do you want a slight spoiler of this kind of topics that I have in mind right now?
No, don't.
Okay.
Don't. We've given them a taste.
Okay.
Don't give them too much.
Too much.
But I do want to. I don't want to go too far away from the actual purpose of this segment, and that's discussion of media. One last thing that I want to talk about as we come to the end of this segment.
All right, hit me.
And I'll let you do one last thing after this. Is a trailer that Yi showed me yesterday, and that I was talking to Raymond about last night. He's apparently seen it too. There is a Chinese-developed game that looks a lot like it plays a lot like Jedi Fallen Order. It's called Black Myth Wukong, and if you know anything about like Chinese mythology, Wukong was like this. He was like a monkey king, like a monkey, like kind of a supernatural deity, right?
Right. I think okay.
He's what Goku is.
Asian culture.
he's what Goku is based off of in Dragon Ball.
Is he the monkey? He's got the monkey crown, and he's got like
a double-sided staff,
a two-handed staff.
Yeah. So they made a game called Black King Wukong, and it's him. Like the trailer looks amazing. It's him running around and fighting off other supernatural deities and interacting with other like minor deities and stuff. It looks like an excellent game. Also, deities. Not deities. Okay, so is this like a potato, tomato sort of deal?
I assume so.
We say deities in the U.S. Do you say is it deities? You say?
Yeah, deities.
This is a kind of cultural commentary you can expect on this podcast.
Yes, I mean let's not get into the whole telephone discussion again on the podcast, which we just had.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're listening though, look up what the British call the game telephone, because it's very different than in the U.S.
Yeah, and
but anyway,
this
no.
is like as a kid we were told about that, so maybe it's not. I mean, assuming it's not acceptable anymore to say it.
They've probably. I imagine somebody has complained.
The children's. Sorry, is this short second? But the children's rhyme "Bar Bar Black Sheep."
Baba Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, yes, sir, 3 bags.
You know they've changed that, right?
No.
It's now officially Bar Bar Rainbow Sheep. That's not a joke.
Fuck, podcast is over. I'm done. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna fucking bang my head against the wall until I'm dead.
That's not a recent thing either. That was years back.
All right, let's save this. Let's save this for the next segment.
Yes, sorry.
But
it's too chaotic.
But what do you think about that though? The Wukong gameplay. Like, first of all, I don't think I can think of a single notable like AAA looking game that has come out of China yet. I was talking to Yi about this yesterday, and neither of us could think of another game coming out of China that was like that polished. Like a lot of them were MMOs or something like that.
There's not many countries that I can name that have, like, if someone say name a famous Russian game, I would be like,
Metro.
ugh. Oh, okay, that is fair.
But I think it's actually developed by an Eastern European company, not by Russia. I think there's a Eastern European developer. I can't remember what country.
I was going to say Glory to Arstotzka, but I don't think that's. I think that's probably.
You're talking about Papers, Please, by the way. So.
Oh yes, sorry.
The game is called Papers, Please. It's a for those that don't know, it's basically a paperwork sorting simulator. You play a border guard to a fictional Eastern European nation named Arstotzka, and it's supposed to be set around the time of the collapse of the Soviet Union, when there's a lot of people trying to move between these newly created borders. Very good game.
It's a lot more fun than it sounds.
Yeah, it's minimalist. It's a very, very good game. Don't let the description fool you. It's deceptively like what's the word? When you get pulled into a game, immersive.
Rolled?
Immersive.
Oh,
it's deceptively immersive. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's you can see that they didn't spend all their budget on graphics. It's very much based on the theory and things behind it, the story, and the kind of way that people have had to live in these kinds of situations. It's based on real life.
Calling back to an earlier part of our discussion, it's very much a game that lives and dies on the atmosphere, story, and gameplay. The graphics are kind of meh, but they don't need to be good, because it's a small indie game.
It's like Factorio. Factorio looks like garbage, but I have hours upon hours of playing it because it's so intrinsically. It's I don't know. It's a statistics game.
It's a game about logistics and building up this very complex, interconnected, empire. Essentially,
it makes you feel smart.
Well, so that's something that I feel is it's a thing that games, at least for me, need to nail, like that balance between challenge and
reward.
Yeah, exactly. The thing if it's a puzzle game, it makes you feel smart because you're like, I've solved this puzzle, and it builds you up to the more and more complex puzzles. But if it's like a shooting game, it's like you're fighting weaker enemies and then you're fighting stronger enemies, and it builds up that skill in you.
I think people say the games have become a lot easier in modern day, and I would agree, but I think a better way of putting it would be games have become a lot more reward. Okay. I'm going to have to explain everything that I'm saying in different ways.
But I hold on to that thought, though.
Okay.
Because you know what? Explain it quickly. Then I'm going to give you one more opportunity to talk about one more piece of media, and then we'll wrap up this segment because we are approaching 40 minutes.
Okay, gotcha. So games in the modern era, they reward you a lot faster and with a lot more shiny things. So playing ESO a lot recently, right?
Yeah.
You get rewards for logging, just being there on a daily basis.
You just have to show up.
Yep. You get your daily bonuses for like doing particular tasks, like on a regular basis, and you get rewards for doing a dungeon once per day. You get special rewards for doing a what's it called? PvP match once per day.
Yep. On
Factorio, you get very little reward. There's no trophy. Actually, I think they might have added achievements.
They probably added achievements, but I know what you mean. You have to like work hard just to get iron.
Really hard, yeah. And your reward is you get like a cooler looking piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Like one single piece of equipment.
You spend about 20 minutes trying to create a supply chain that automates mining iron and smelting it, and your reward is you no longer have to do that manually.
or it's slightly more efficient, or something like that. And so the reward is negligible, but it feels so much better because what you've done, the thing itself that you've done is tangible. You can see it there. It's a it's a masterpiece in itself. It's not just like something you've put in a box, it's whisked away, and you're given, hey, have a present. It's shiny.
It's the satisfaction of a good day's work.
Exactly, which most people that play games can't understand. That's why visceral cleanup detail is incredibly pleasing to play. But to anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's just you're just mopping up someone else's mess on a digital platform. You're not getting paid for it, nothing. But it is so satisfying.
God.
When you've finished mopping up. And that's where I'm going to finish.
One quick point about that last bit there, about visceral cleanup detail. For those that don't know, there's an entire genre of games around just doing a job. Truck simulator, train simulator, farming simulator. Visceral cleanup detail is a good example. Even Papers, Please, there is a bit of a story to it, and like progression and some other mechanics, but really, you're just a border guard, and you're playing as a border guard.
Yep.
Like there's an entire genre of games just doing very mundane jobs.
And it doesn't mean people want to do those jobs. It's just people want to try, like, see a little bit into the life of what it's like, and feel how good it could feel to complete, air quotation marks, a hard day's work.
Yeah. All right, well, so we are at 42 minutes. Did you have one other piece of medium, movie, book, game that you want to talk about, or you think you're good where we are?
I've been playing a lot of... Okay, right, super fast one. I've been playing, the last 2 days, I've been playing Rayman Raving Rabbids 2.
I'm aware of that game. I have never played any of the Rayman games. Any of them.
Okay, it's the only one that's worth playing, really. Well, maybe the first one's also good. But I can't even call it a childhood game, because I don't think I was really a child when it came out. But it's one of these things I've returned to. It's a Wii game, one of the first games that was out on the Wii. And it's just party games, and mostly the actions that you're doing are the same, but it's hilarious. And my god, does it ever, like, my arms, I went out for a drink an hour after playing this game, and I could barely lift my glass of rum to my mouth. Because I was so tired from pumping my arm up and down, trying to, like, saw a branch in the game.
Oh god, motion controls, yeah. Like, I had the Wii. We had a Wii in our college dorm, and I used to, like, it was a good workout. I used to use the Wii. I used to do Wii boxing. It was just, throwing punches and trying to get, like, high scores doing that. And I had a lot of fun with it. It was a good workout. Motion controls are an interesting beast, because to some people they are the epitome of everything wrong. It's like you're moving in the wrong direction.
Also, it's kind of like idiot bait, because how many times have you seen YouTube videos of people playing tennis or baseball on Wii Sports and just destroying their TV?
Yeah, they throw the controller through the TV or through the wall or something like that. I actually have a funny story. My father, and this will be the end of the segment. My father, I brought home my Wii when I was in college, because I'd go back to my parents' place in the summer when I wasn't at school, and we were playing Wii bowling, and my father was really getting into it, like, whipping the controller like he was actually bowling, and we have a wood floor. He was wearing socks. He slipped on one of them and just, like... My father's a very big man. He's something like 6 feet tall or something like that. And decent amount of muscle.
Not wide.
Yeah, decent amount of muscle on him. He went off his feet and slammed into the floor. And, but that's the thing. You really get into those types of games.
Yeah. I remember you saying your... sorry, I know you said it. I remember you saying your dad was in VR. You showed him VR once. And he was in, like, an imaginary bar.
Yep, playing
Tried to lean
pool, and
on one of
he
the-
lost his balance and tried to lean on an imaginary table and fell over.
Oh,
Like, he's...
oh, we've all been there.
Yeah, he's a... Like, he's always willing to try these types of games. He's the kind of person that I think that the VR and motion control games really appeal to, because it's a video game, but it has that simulation, that feel of real life. And
You get lost in it.
yeah, like that's much more his kind of game. And yeah, exactly, you get lost in it. He'd play these games and he'd forget that he's playing a game, which, like, it was always an absolute pleasure to me to, like, you know, when I have that kind of equipment, when I have somebody who's not typically a gamer and I let them try it out and they're like, they love it. Anyway, we've talked for 46 minutes at this point.
Oh shit, we've really everyone. Sorry,
Yeah.
go.
So what I'm going to do, just a quick outro again. I said this is the end of segment 1. We are going to wrap up this segment here. If you're listening to this segment when it first comes out by itself, it's going to be on Wednesday. The full podcast in its entirety is going to be coming out on Saturday. So if you're listening to that version of the podcast, you're going to be probably about 2, maybe 3 seconds without hearing the dulcet tones of our voice. Otherwise, we'll see you on Friday when the third segment comes out. All right, and we're back for the third segment. For those of you listening on Saturday, this is going to... You've just heard my voice like 3 seconds ago. But for those of you listening on Friday, it's been 2 days. We're back.
God, it's Friday.
So, the whole idea of this third segment is we wanted it to be sort of a wild card. So some weeks we might, I don't know, it might be like, hey, we're going to play this game beforehand and then just immediately give our thoughts on it, having not talked about it. Or it might be us just deciding to talk about food. Or it could be us talking about, you know, drinks we like. It could be us talking about, like, I don't know,
Madness, chaos, intrigue.
It could be literally anything. I wanted this to be a wild card. It could also just be free discussion. If we don't have something planned, we might just talk about whatever we feel like, whatever's on our minds. Could be news.
Yeah, some things are going to be more intense than other things. Some things are just... I keep using the word thing.
Freeform discussion?
Topics that are just totally freaking random things that I was thinking about, and I was like, maybe there's a conversation in there somewhere.
So, for a very good reason, this first segment is going to be of Blue's choosing. And the very good reason is, I spent all of this week on a beach in the sun and doing no work because I was on vacation. So I didn't have time to think about this. So
calling me in the middle of the night, slightly drunk.
That did happen. It was sunburnt and tanned and listening to the soft music, and I was like, I just need to talk to my good friend Blue.
Yep. So do you also have topics for this section or not?
So I have no topics. I have nothing at all planned for this. So I want you to lead us in. Tell us what we are going to be talking about.
Okay, to start it off, probably one of the weirder things that I have on my list. I was watching a program yesterday, and it was a dietary program. Sounds boring as heck, right? And to be fair, it was pretty boring, especially to a guy who is, well...
Yeah, you're basically ramrod thin.
I am pretty dangerously so, but that's the point. So there was a person who was like some kind of food counselor, right? He was sat with these two people.
Yeah.
And he was there were these raisins, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And each person had a raisin, and the counselor was like, right, the raisin is something you want. I want you to savor the raisin by, first of all, just give it a sniff, right? Close your eyes. Just sniff the raisin. Now just, like, put it delicately on your lips and move it back and forth. It's a frickin' raisin! Ah! Like, I get the idea of savoring something nice, but feeling the peng shui feng shi of a raisin.
Feng shui is the word.
It's ridiculous. Like, enjoy a piece of chocolate every so often. Your reward can be a single piece of chocolate as opposed to a bar of chocolate.
Yeah.
You still feel the reward of eating the chocolate, and you would naturally eat it slower because you know it's the only one and you're enjoying and savoring the taste.
Yeah.
Don't give it a freaking raisin blowjob before you eat. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
It doesn't matter. I'm not publishing these videos as safe for children.
Yeah, good. Okay. Before you eat it, that's just madness. Is it?
So this is actually something that I can go into too. I think we can actually safely talk about this for quite a long time.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. That is fucking insane. But there's a trend of like people doing all the. It's like these lifestyle videos, right?
Yeah.
Like the dietary video, the sniff it, taste it, give it a little lick,
like,
and then eat it.
That was another thing. Lick it. Like, it's a raisin. It doesn't have a.
Not the outside, at least. Yeah, you're right. You bite into it. Actually, I do like raisins.
I don't like raisins, but I mean that's beside the point. Like, even if it was a piece of chocolate, people say that you meant to like let chocolate melt inside your mouth, and I can understand that, but at the same time, I like to savor things. I don't like to wait a million years for it to melt.
I think
can't take that.
What we're talking about is like connoisseurship at that point. So
Sewership?
Connoisseurship.
I don't know. What?
Like a connoisseur, somebody who's.
Oh, connoisseur. Right. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I think my mic was cutting out there for you a little bit. The
I was
Studio
like,
One.
sewer?
So another little background detail. I'm using a studio mic to record myself, but I'm using a headset mic for Blue to hear me. So occasionally I cut out for him, but not for you. So sorry about that.
It's a rat. But yes, go on.
But I think that there's a lot to that. Like you hear people talking about like any sort of indulgence, whether it's food, booze, something you smoke, anything you really enjoy, really. Like something that's not necessary for life, but is an indulgence. So like I personally, most of the people listening to this probably know this at this point because our audience is localized to friends and family at this point.
Yeah.
I enjoy whiskey. I really do. And there's a way to, like, you have to add, like, most whiskeys, you're supposed to add, like, a little bit of water. Either it's through ice or just, like, a drop of, like, pretty purified water. To bring out most of the flavor, and then you sip it. You're supposed to roll it around in your mouth a little bit, enjoy like the flavors developing, and then drink it down, and then you feel like more flavors developing as it goes down your throat.
Yeah, I'm not.
But
like
the same is true for like wine. Like they actually have a what is it? They're called sommeliers, right? Those people who just like they know wine, they smell it and they taste it and everything like that. It tastes
oaky.
Exactly. Yeah. I detect notes of cinnamon.
Yes, I remember this story. Go on.
Do you want me to tell it? All right, fine. So, he's heard this story before, but we had a running joke back in college. One of our friends, big wine aficionado, or wine aficionado in training, I guess you'd say, because this was college. And we had a prank planned where we would just walk out to him while he's at a party or at some kind of gathering, and go like, "Hey," and he'd look over and we'd have like a bottle of really cheap wine and just pour it over our heads with our head tipped up and just covered in wine. Just look back at him and go like, "I taste notes of cinnamon." Because he hated that phrase. He absolutely hated the "I detect notes of cinnamon" because everyone says that about wine, apparently. Like, most of the amateur critics of it. But it's true, though. Like, every sort of brand of a thing like that. You get people who smoke cigars. They say you have to puff in and then like roll the smoke around in your mouth. You don't breathe it in and then you blow it out. You would just enjoy
See,
the flavor.
I would say I say that kind of stuff in a far more fun way. So there is actually, whenever you mention cinnamon, there is you know how much I love rum.
Yes.
There is a rum that tastes, as I put it, like Christmas. And cinnamon and Christmas, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I would describe something. I was like, oh, the Christmassy drink, as opposed to notes of cinnamon.
I taste cardamom and fresh spring grass or something like that. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
I think that there's way too much fluff around those types of descriptions. I'm the same way.
More of a wine thing. Like people go into wine sometimes because they want to have the upper class. I don't know. I don't want to sound like an asshole that hates wine people. I don't hate wine people. Drink wine.
But I mean, seriously, take it down a notch. I hate wine people. Fuck off.
I thought you were talking about me. Oh, okay, shit.
No. I was talking to all the wine people out there.
Oh, okay. Damn. Did your parents drink wine?
No. My dad's a beer guy and my mom's a whiskey person.
Nice.
My mom's the person who got me into whiskey. Like she was, and like she's probably the reason that I didn't go to college and immediately start like throwing back like cheap shit. Like when I started drinking in college, I had like what was it, like Dewar's, Pinch, like these blended Scotch whiskeys. They're not like super fancy, but they're definitely better than like fucking Fireball or Jack Daniels or something like that.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, Jack Daniels has come out with some pretty some nicer stuff. Gentleman Jack, Single Barrel. We could just honestly, this is we're going deep into different kinds of booze at this point. But the point is. the point is there's these indulgences, whether it's wine, cigars. Now there's even becoming like a marijuana aficionado community. You go into these and people tend to be very pretentious.
Yeah.
And I don't think it just applies to like intoxicants. I think it also tends to apply to... I mean, you get the same thing with coffee, actually. Like, these are black Himalayan beans or something like that. They were grown at this altitude with only this much water or something. I don't doubt that affects the flavor, but I feel like people... I had a coworker who got into this with spices for cooking. He's like, I only get the most, like, freshly ground, locally grown cumin seeds or something like that.
Right. Does it? I mean, I'm sure it does taste better because that's what you always hear. But is it really that much more amazing if it's locally grown?
I personally, this is my experience with it because I use only the cheapest spices in my cooking.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a skimp for that kind of thing as well.
I don't find enough of a difference. I have gotten nice spices before and tried it, and if you really like know your food, you can tell the difference. So for me, like between like a nice whiskey and a cheap whiskey, I drink a lot of whiskeys, so I can tell the difference. Like I have like a glass of 18-year-old scotch versus a glass of, young blended scotch, and you can tell one is harsher, one like has like one flavor and then it goes down and it goes away. The other one has like a very smooth taste to it. It doesn't burn your throat, and if it does burn your throat, it comes with these like pleasant flavors that are released. And from what I'm
delicious burning.
But some of the scotches you actually want that, like Islay scotches. Wines, from the friends that I have that drink those, have said like it's a similar thing. Like after you've had the experience to kind of taste a bunch of them and develop your palate, But the thing is, if you eat a lot of spicy food, that kind of destroys your palate anyway. So wines have a much more subtle flavor. So the sommeliers, the people I was talking about earlier, the people who professionally taste wine, which by the way, that is a racket.
Right. I mean, I was thinking it, but I wasn't gonna say it.
So the people that do that, they purposely avoid foods with very strong flavors because they need to have that fully developed ability to taste and smell things. But the people who just do it kind of amateurishly, I don't think it really makes a massive difference. I didn't find a difference with the spices. Maybe if you have that long-standing time where you're trying different things and really looking into the subtleties, then you'll be able to ascertain that sort of difference.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the people who go for these artisanal spices, right, the local grown, there's not really that huge of a difference unless you are some kind of aficionado.
Yeah, if you really know your onions, then absolutely, I'm sure that. Okay, so a friend of mine, you've actually met, Mike and Ash, right?
Yep.
They have a bar in their apartment, and Mike makes some amazing drinks. Yeah. He's gone online, he's done his research, and I really mean done his research. He makes some amazing cocktails.
Yeah.
And then I go over there like a jackass and start putting absinthe with all kinds of... Anyway. And it's basically poison.
Yeah.
But when I'm that drunk, it doesn't matter. But yeah, he can make some genuinely amazing drinks that I would... high quality for going out and having a drink, that level of stuff. And he's not professionally... I'm sure if he had official, real, gone to a course and done training, then it would be just amazing. I can really you really can taste the difference between an amateur throwing some shots together and a professional doing it. But okay, go on.
So there are three things I want to say in response to that. First,
right,
you're absolutely right. I think this is kind of you know what, I'm going to say this one last, but I think there definitely is a kind of an amateur aficionado culture developing now. And I want to talk about this more, but I think that the way the internet has kind of influenced things, there are people like that, people who can just decide that they have a passion about this one thing, and they can go and they can research it, and they can become quite competent in that one thing without actually having to go through all of the professional training. Point number 2, and I realized I started this but never finished it. I was saying that I can tell the difference between a really good whiskey and a really poor whiskey, and even so I'll give an example. I went to a store Friday, with a couple friends, big wine superstore, but they also had a well-developed liquor section, and I was looking through. They had some scotches and whiskeys that I'd never seen before, and I picked up an 18-year-old scotch, meaning it was, so for those that don't know, it was distilled and then aged in barrels for 18 years before it's actually bottled. And normally that level of aging, they have a very well-developed flavor to them. And I was surprised by how cheap it was compared to most scotches of that age. I've tried it since then, and it's kind of mediocre for a scotch that old. It has no complexity to the flavor. But that's kind of my point, is that I can tell that difference for scotches and for whiskeys. But when it comes to wines, I'm like, you know what? I'm having spaghetti tonight. I'll just get, this one costs $10. I'll grab that one.
Yeah, that's a bit of class.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's all within your area, and I think spices are kind of the same way for me. I love cooking. I cook all the time, but I can't really. I don't have a very well developed palate when it comes to food. If the food is well cooked and it tastes good and it's got the
You know
right
what you like.
spices. Yeah, exactly. I don't care if it's like I don't care if my pepper was freshly ground or it came out of like a bottle. But that's me. I think it this is what I'm transitioning into, and this is what I want to get your thoughts on. I think we are moving into an era where people. It used to be the people who were aficionados, the people who really cared about their food and their drink and their music and whatever else, were people that had spent the time, had done the research, had maybe gone to school for it, and had developed that palate for that item. It doesn't have to necessarily be food or drink. It could also be music or games or movies. There were people who had that critical eye. Now, I think with the advent of the internet, you're seeing people who have developed these sort of complex tastes, not for everything, but for the things that they specifically care about. I want your thoughts.
Well, hang on, sorry. So, my mind's been wandering.
No worries.
It's the third coffee. Um, So you're talking about the.
I'm talking about so you were talking about your friend, right? How he was like very proficient at making these drinks with the right proportions, with the right booze. He did that as an amateur.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about a coworker who did the same thing with cooking. Like he got the right spices with the right meat with the high quality.
Right.
But that same friend you're talking about, he probably or may have like kind of mediocre tastes when it comes to movies or when it comes to like chicken or something like that.
I mean,
the friend I'm talking about, I know the friend I'm talking about. I know for a fact he had like terrible tastes in liquor. He had terrible tastes in movies, but he had very proficient tastes when it came to spices and cooking. So what I'm saying is I think the internet has kind of given us an age where people can become an artisan in one very specific thing that they...
Yeah.
It isn't their whole life.
Jack of all trades, master of none, that kind of thing. Be great at one thing and suck at everything else, or you could be pretty good at everything.
But it doesn't necessarily... But in a hobbyist way.
Regarding his movie choices... 'cause I have been to a few movies with them.
Yeah.
Quite often we'll go into the movie, and it'll be a kind of the AAA games equivalent of. Do you get AAA movies?
I mean, technically, yeah. I think that's the big name. When I think AAA, AAA isn't really the way they describe it, but it's like the Marvel movies versus the
Marvel
boys.
movie was one of the ones I was going to mention because that is one of the things that we went and saw, and. He came out of it and he was like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I was like, I'm a bit critical and I don't want to drag him down with my opinions.
Yeah.
Because he obviously enjoyed the movie. But he doesn't have too much to say about them. And maybe I go into too much, I think about these things too much. Maybe I'm just a mouthy git.
But
whose opinions shouldn't be said. But,
yeah.
I mean, that's what this is. This is me us voicing our opinions on the irks and the pleasures of life.
Again, the whole appeal, I hope, of this podcast is people listening to it and going like, "These people don't know shit," or "Hey, I agree with that."
Yeah,
that's what I want. If you agree with this, or if you think we're full of shit, I'm sorry, I just burped into the microphone. If you agree with us, or if you think we're full of shit, say it in the comments.
Yeah. Tell us particularly if you think we're full of shit. No. But yeah, no. We're obviously very opinionated.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone else is too, and they just don't like speaking their mind as much. Mm. And then in the hive, we're quite a close-knit bunch. And we'll so definitely speak our minds.
But to bring that back, though, you're talking about there are things. What you're talking about there, like kind of goes along with what I was kind of leading towards. You both watched that movie. He was able to watch it as what it was, just like a popcorn action flick. It's not necessarily satisfying, like it doesn't touch your higher brain so much, but it's entertaining. There's explosions and flashes, and it's like, that was cool to watch. You, on the other hand, you're looking at it with a little bit more of a critical eye. You've seen some maybe higher quality movies and things.
Am I a wine aficionado snob? But for movies?
You apparently.
Oh my god. No.
That's what happened. Oh my god.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, right now you've witnessed it firsthand. I'm kicking Blue off the podcast, and I'm going to have to find somebody who's a little bit more of a Neanderthal like me.
Oh, come on. Like, you don't complain about movies all the time.
I do, actually. That's why we have an entire segment called Media.
Yes, and why we watch movies every week.
Yeah.
But moving it on slightly to another topic.
Go ahead.
Something perfect for after you had a drink, or maybe during. Monopoly.
Oh,
the game known for breaking people up, destroying families. Oh shit! I spilled coffee on myself. Well, the worst thing is it was on my trousers, and the first thing I thought was maybe I can suck that up.
All right, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now have a podcast host who is a eunuch.
Shut up.
This goes back to what I was saying earlier, where this podcast gets more and more chaotic as it goes on.
Well, after 3 coffees, what are you fucking expecting?
I don't know. I've gotten a little bit more professional after, a scotch.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. It's become a tradition now. Whenever I go around Ease, that we play Monopoly literally every day now.
Jesus Christ! How do you fucking stay together?
Well, the funny thing is, it's I think we're playing up until the day when E manages to win a game.
Does she listen to these?
She does, and I'm gonna get so much flack for this, but it's a great deal of fun, and I am so proud of her for sticking with it, because I am horribly competitive.
Oh yeah,
and Monopoly is one of the most competitive games you can play.
I think so am I.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the 3 of us played Monopoly once, and I was playing in VR, which is damning enough as is. Anyway, so not only are we playing Monopoly.
Yeah, there you go. That's a word.
We're playing the Disney version.
Oh god.
That's the one that they have at their house, and so I know that their favorite tile is Beauty and the Beast, right? So if I manage to get my hands on Beauty and the Beast, it's like a free do whatever I want. Oh shit, I just spilled so much coffee. Alright, I gotta put this down, sorry. Oh, I actually need a tissue for this. There's so much coffee on me right now.
Alright, I'll fill while you clean yourself up.
Thank you, yes.
So, this is reminding me of another story. So from my childhood, I played Monopoly quite a bit with my family, but although when I was growing up, my family tended to play more games that you could gamble to. I remember playing cribbage a lot when I was growing up.
All right, I've heard of cribbage.
Oh, it's actually a lot of fun. My dad loved that game. Right. So, but that game aside, we did play Monopoly a few times, and I feel like my parents let me have a few indulgences, but they were kind of ruthless when we played the game.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, just knowing the
parents that they generally were, but I was like 6, so they kind of let some stuff go.
All the more reason.
I was like trying to make this trade, and they're like, all right, I'll do it I'll give you slightly favorable terms. I don't know. I did like that about my parents. They didn't pull a lot of punches when we were playing games. But I did with my one of my very close friends. Known her my whole life. I won't say her name on this because I have no idea if she actually wants her name out on the internet.
Yeah.
But she and I used to play a version of Monopoly, and it was a lot of fun as like a creative endeavor. We called it Monopoly as like a joke. This was when we were both in middle school, and we would just essentially the rules were fluid. We started with the Monopoly rules, and we were allowed to change them at any point during the game.
Yeah.
So it was like, I made the like one of the rules I made first off, like right off the bat, was I made the middle of the board a space, and we allowed skyscrapers instead of just like houses, so we could stack the houses.
Right. I see.
And we did like we made up all these rules, and it devolved into an arena combat game by the end of the game. But when you're talking about playing Monopoly, that was the story I was thinking of. Is like we managed to take Monopoly and make it
a first-person shooter or something.
We made it more competitive. It's just like you've never met her or talked to her, but like she's almost.
I know who you mean there.
She's almost as competitive as I am.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I say almost, and I think that she might contest that.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's competitive. If she's as competitive as you say she is, then she will compete for it.
Oh man. But very good for it. But we played Monopoly a few times, and getting tired of the basic rules, we decided to change them and just have like a free form kind of.
Everyone's got their own rules.
That is, house rules are something. When I actually played the real version of Monopoly for the first time, because every version I played before had house rules. When I played the real version for the first time, I was shocked at how quickly the game went.
Really? I mean, even when we played Monopoly, like, as you know, you're stubborn as heck.
Of course I am.
You're like, no, the rules I play by are the original rules, and you can just play it that way.
Well, and the reason is because when I discovered the real rules, I was like, holy shit, this is actually a lot faster.
Right.
I was trying to get out of the game.
But yeah, like some people play with the taxes going into free parking, and if you land on free parking, you get the money, which doesn't make any sense to me, because if I could go into a car park and get handed $2,000, I'd be oh my god, yeah.
I honestly thought that started in Boston when I was a kid, because I was like, well, it's basically just gambling. And we like the lottery is basically just part of. So, fun fact for those of you who don't listen or don't live in Massachusetts, the lottery is state run here, and it's a basically just a giant like spin the wheel and see who wins the money. They throw out like different numbers, and if you get all the numbers right, then you get a bunch of money.
I mean, that's the lottery in general, isn't it?
It depends.
Right. Okay. Go on.
Anyway, in Massachusetts, the lottery is like there's like five numbers. They all get pulled out of a thing. It's like 1 to 100 each of them, and then it gives you it, and you have to write them down ahead of time, and get a ticket and everything. That's our big state lottery, and pulls in like billions of dollars. I just assumed that like that rule of Monopoly was just like a gambling thing. Like,
yeah, no,
because it's just like if you roll right, then you get all the cash that everyone else lost.
Yeah, it seems very unbalanced because one person will get all that money and the other person will not.
It's
I quite often play with the rule that if you land on the go square, you get double the amount of money.
That one, I kind of like that one too.
Kind of okay.
It's not a huge impact.
Yeah, and if you, it's not that one person gets loads of money and the other person doesn't. You can both land on it at the same time.
Yeah. And
both get double the cash.
It's not a jackpot sort of situation.
No, and if you then go on to land on the negative 200 cash, that's like four spaces or squares. I'm doing that so much onto the board. Then you just end up with plus 200, which is the normal thing anyway. Oh my god, it was so mean though. Today's I did it today, this morning.
Oh god, but you were playing Monopoly
before.
today.
Yeah, this morning we woke up and played Monopoly.
Oh my god, that is a way to start like a day-long fight right there.
And oh, it was so unlucky. By the end of it, E does not like putting risk out. So I will mortgage things to buy properties and things like that. E will always have about 100 in the bank before she does anything. So I had castles instead of hotels, because it's Disney.
Yeah.
On all 3 of the red tiles and the 2 brown tiles, and she did not have a house down yet because I was being really, really stingy about my trades. So every so often I always went either you're in the deep shit or the other person's in deep shit, where I'm like, y'all do a trade? I got a card here you might like, kind of thing.
So, god damn it.
And even though the trade was really good for her, she would just look at me, flip me the bird, and say, no, fuck you.
So this segment has quickly transitioned into just like stories from our daily lives. But there is one thing that I want to talk about on that point. You would absolutely... You probably would fit in a lot better with the sort of Monopoly games that I played with my college friends.
Right.
Us all being like engineers and several of us like having minds for finance.
Yeah.
We would do things like, all right, you have this purple, property. I have the other purple property. So I'll trade it to you for $100 now, immunity to this property over here, and a 10% increase or 10% revenue from this property over here. Like, we would do deals like that you would need to like write down on paper and actually remember, like, hey, you landed there. I never did
percentages like that, but quite often there's a thing where it's like, tell you what, I will give you this property, and I won't even make you pay for it, even though you've just landed on it. I won't make you pay for it, but you've got to give me these 3 cheap ones.
Yeah, or like, you have immunity to this property, but I want, half your revenue from that property. Like, I would do, like, we used to do deals like that, and there's, the rules allow it. That's in the base rules of Monopoly. You're allowed to make whatever deals you want to make.
Yeah.
Like, I love that sort of thing. I love it.
Did you ever do the mortgaging asshole trick?
Oh, what?
That is to say, you like... I did this with Alicia, but I actually took it back because I felt so bad about how much of a mean person I was.
Okay.
I mortgaged the property.
Yeah.
That she needed to... Wait, did I say her actual name? Anyway, we'll cut it out.
I said her actual name earlier too, but her last name is... I've said several people's actual name, but we've only used first names. So...
Okay, we're gonna need to, I'm afraid.
I'll remind me when I'm doing the editing. I'll bleep them.
Okay. So back to it. I mortgaged a property, and then later on, I was like, "Oh, I want that property you have. I'll trade it for the property that I have that you want of mine." So I'll make the trade, and she'll be like, she'll put it face up on her side, and I'm like, "No, that's mortgaged. You have to pay for that to unmortgage it before you can do anything with it."
Oh my god.
And she was like, "What the fuck?" I'm like,
I do that all the time. I did that all the time, but like I was up front. I was a little bit more upfront about it. Just like, like the trade would be like kind of half price if it was mortgage.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so we're coming up on 40 minutes here for the last segment. There's some bits that I think we've talked about that I have to either bleep or edit out. So, final thoughts, because we are ending the first real podcast.
Right, yes. I don't know, all I can think about is chocolate dinosaurs.
I mean, that's as good a final thought as I could imagine.
I mean, yeah. I just got home today from where I've been, and there was a chocolate dinosaur. and now that's just stuck in my mind because it's on my desk.
Jesus Christ. All right. So, final thoughts on my end. I think that we've found that we can talk much more about movies than I ever thought, because I'm not a big movie person. Like, we watch movies and TV shows and things like that. Obviously.
Same with books, I think.
Yeah, books, surprisingly as well. Like, I thought that most of our content was going to end up being talking about games, because we do play a lot of games. But apparently, apparently the two of us have also consumed quite a bit of movie and book media.
We're so cultured.
Apparently, Jesus. And we even had a segment where we're talking about, like, you know, wine and spices and food and things like that. God.
Yeah.
We really are the greatest human beings on Earth.
Ah, right. And now someone is going to make a video in response where they correct all the mistakes we've made, and it'll be twice the length of this video.
You've just described YouTube in a nutshell.
Yeah.
All right. So we're coming up on the end of this segment. I want to thank everyone who is listening for listening. If you're listening again on Friday, this will be the final segment. But if you're listening on Saturday, this is also the final segment. No matter what's going on in your life, this is the end of the podcast. We're going to do another one of these next week. I hope you enjoyed it, and please come back and listen to us again.